This is Beyond the Finish Line number 2, an exciting new series on the automotive world of racing and vehicle performance. The feature section of today's show will cover Trans Am and NASCAR racing. And we'll talk to some of the leaders in these sports. Jack Roush, engine builder and team owner. Pete Halsmer, championship driver and test engineer. Bill Elliott, one of NASCAR's biggest and most popular winners in recent history. Leonard Wood of the legendary Wood Brothers, one of the most successful teams since the birth of NASCAR. 1987's Rookie of the Year, Davey Allison, son of Bobby Allison, and one of the brightest stars in racing's Brat Pack. And Kyle and Richard Petty. Richard has more Winston Cup wins than anyone else. And Kyle is a hot, new, up-and-coming driver in Winston Cup competition. In our technical department, we'll look into easy add-on performance in the V8 build, and we'll explore the newest advances in automotive aerodynamics and racing safety. Finally, in today's showcase, we'll take you through the final steps as Beyond the Finish Line modifies a stock 5-liter Mustang into a high-performance street car. You can win this car by entering the Beyond the Finish Line sweepstakes. Details of this exciting sweepstakes are available in the showcase segment. And now, an inside look at Trans Am racing. One of the reasons the idea for the Trans Am race started was Ford's launching of the all-new Mustang in 1964. Within the next few years, other so-called pony cars appeared, with long hoods, short decks, and powerful engines. When the Sports Car Club of America started the Trans Am series in 1966, manufacturers seized the opportunity to apply the win on Sunday, sell on Monday principle. Within a year, Ford, GM, Chrysler, and AMC were battling it out on racetracks across the country, fighting for the newly created Manufacturers' Championship and hoping to create a performance image for these new cars. Car makers shifted away from high-performance cars with the gas-conscious 70s. It wasn't until the early 80s, when Americans began crying for more power, that manufacturers turned to the Trans Am series once again. By the 1983 season, both Chevrolet and Lincoln Mercury were locked in a battle for the Manufacturers' Cup. Chevy won 10 of the 12 events to take the title that year, but it would be their last for quite some time. Since then, the Trans Am Championship has belonged to Lincoln Mercury. The outright domination of Lincoln Mercury has been nothing short of awesome. Since 1984, the division has won 35 of the 54 Trans Am races. That's almost twice as many as all other manufacturers combined. In 1984, with Tom Gloy and his Capri leading the way, Lincoln Mercury won 11 of 16 races and the championship. 1985 was nearly identical. But this time, in addition to Gloy winning, Capris were also campaigned by Jack Roush. Roush's magical Mercuries combined with the driving talents of young Wally Dallenbach Jr. and Willie T. Ribbs to lead Lincoln Mercury to the winner's circle no less than 12 times, including one streak of 5 in a row, to send everyone else back to the drawing boards once again. It seemed the Capri could not be beaten. Concentrating on the new XR4 Ti, the decision to race this car was based on Ford's commitment to continue moving forward by producing turbocharged, smaller engines that were consistent with the production car and energy evolution of today. The turbocharged 4-cylinder XR4 Ti had never been raced and presented some unique problems. It began to look like the Chevy V8s would coast right to the title. But the XR4 Ti proved to be a willing student and came back to win 4 of the last 5 races. With the championship down to the last race, Lincoln Mercury swept the top 5 places to win their 3rd consecutive Manufacturers' Championship. The XR4 Ti had truly come of age. This domination continued into 1987. The XR4 Ti clinched Lincoln Mercury's 4th consecutive manufacturer's title by winning 11 of 12 races in 1987. These accomplishments are truly remarkable when you consider that the XR4 Ti represents a new revolution in racing technology. Remember that Trans Am racing started out as a battle of V8s and cubic inches. Through the years, with smaller engines appearing on the street, The goal of factory engineers has been to get more with less. It wasn't too long ago that everyone ran just normally aspirated V8s, but that has changed. The winning car now runs a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. The XR4TI's 2.3-liter fuel-injected and turbocharged engine now produces over 530 horsepower, as much as engines twice its size that are normally aspirated. The turbocharger, fuel injection, and electronic engine control systems are similar to the same ones used on the street models. The engine, of course, has a variety of Ford SVO motorsports components, but it also is basically the same as the production car. How do you take a car that has never been raced and turn it into a winner? Just ask one of the best engine builders in the business.
The part that needs the greatest amount of attention is the engine. For one thing, you expect to double the engine speed. 4,000 RPM engine for a production car becomes an 8,000 RPM engine for a race car. And you double to triple the horsepower, depending on the rules that you're permitted to operate under. So special attention must be paid to the oiling system, to the pistons, to the connecting rod strength, to the valve train, and to the other things that in a production car may not be keyed to the high-speed engine operation and to the extreme high temperatures. Would do, in that regard, a substantial amount of development on the dynamometer to calibrate the E4 electronics to the special requirements that the power output would give, and for the fuel economy requirements as well. So the dynamometer piece would be very important, as well as the basic understanding of the problems that the engines always face when you take them racing.
Even though the XR4TI race car looks very much like the street version, it really is quite different. Starting with a tubular frame, everything is made in the shop. That includes all the small hardware, control arms, hubs, the diffuser for the turbo, brake ducting, uprights, adjusting nuts, even the seat. Most all the body work is molded fiberglass or similar lightweight, high-strength composites. Everything is handmade and conceived with no compromise. After it's all together, then it's onto the track for testing. You never know what you've got until it runs on the track, and that's where the driver comes in. It's up to the driver to test and recommend adjustments to make the car run as fast as it is capable. Roush Racing's two primary drivers for the last few years have been Pete Halsmer and Scott Pruitt. Halsmer brings years of experience with Indy cars, Super Vs, GT prototypes, even with off-road trucks. An engineer, Pete Halsmer is regarded as one of the best development drivers in racing, and with the new advancements in turbo technology, the driver's ability has become even more crucial to putting the car in the winner's circle, and Pete is no exception.
The turbo has its own unique characteristics compared to a normally aspirated, for instance, V8 engine. The turbo is a boosting system that provides additional power to the car, to the motor, but it doesn't happen instantly. It takes a moment for it to what we call spool up or spin up. And in the meantime, you have to learn how to optimize the car's performance and utilize that time period while it's getting ready to make horsepower to still go fast. You still have to be trying to run the car quick during that period of time while you're waiting for a moment. So you really need to be getting after the throttle a little earlier than you would normally. With the V8 Capri, it was a normally aspirated car. It did not have a throttle response. In other words, when you step on the gas, it was making power almost instantly. With the turbo car, you step on the gas and then a moment later, a portion of a second later, the power comes on hard. And so you have to learn how to get after the throttle a little earlier than you might normally want it in order to match that up with right when you need it. The suspension on the XR4TI is an independent suspension, which is different in the rear than the Capri was and than a lot of the other normally aspirated cars are. And it does a couple of things. It gives you more tunability in the chassis. It allows you to change the camber that you wouldn't be able to do with a standard rear end, a live axle rear end car. And it also reduces the weight in each corner, in each rear corner of the car that has to move up and down as it goes over bumps. And as you reduce that weight, you're able to control it better over the different bumps and undulations on a racetrack. We're really pleased with the XR4 Ti, particularly aerodynamically. The car is really the car to beat. It has really surpassed the competition in terms of creating good downforce and adhesion on the road and having a low coefficient of drag, allowing us to go faster down the straights and faster around the corners.
Even though Lincoln Mercury has entered the record books in a big way, it is constantly moving forward, developing technology on the racetrack, probing the future to meet the next set of challenges. This is the kind of commitment it takes to be the best. America's love affair with speed is almost as old as the automobile itself. Even Henry Ford himself used to spend long hours developing new speed components for his cars back in the 1920s and 30s. But most of us are more familiar with hot rodding in the 50s. The battles waged on the street to decide if the Ford Flathead could outpower the Chevy V8 are now legendary. By the mid-60s, hot rodding progressed to building up monster big blocks like the 428 Cobra jet engines or the potent small blocks like the 289s or 302s. These engines were easily modified, extremely powerful, and they are still popular with today's muscle car enthusiasts. But the performance enthusiast of today must adopt a whole different approach to hot rodding late model cars. Now he must deal with emissions laws, engine computers, fuel economy, and the increasing complexity of today's fuel-injected engines. Some hot rodders, like Chris Kaufman, have demonstrated that it is possible to work within these parameters. His company, Kaufman Products, has developed packages to increase performance on today's Ford high-output engines. Working with Ford's SVO high-performance equipment, Kaufman's designs are simple, easily bolted on, and work with rather than against the EEC-4, Ford's sophisticated electronic engine control system.
What we've always tried to do is to offer the late model performance enthusiast a little modification to his vehicle that improves the performance, enhances the efficiency of the vehicle, and lives within the emissions parameters. The EPA and the different regulatory agencies allow us to make modifications that are within these parameters. We do not render inoperative, remove, bypass, or disconnect any of the control devices. In fact, when we get done making our modifications, the engine is as efficient and smog-free as it was when we started.
3 levels of performance are offered, from mild to wild. This 5-liter Mustang LX was tested on a drag strip completely stock, and it still turned in a 14.54-second elapsed time at a speed of 96.56 miles per hour, time worthy of yesterday's more powerful engines. The car is tested after adding each of the 3 packages to determine the performance gain. The first stage, the most basic one, consists of replacement underdrive aluminum pulleys, an air filter, mufflers, and a new ring and pinion gear. Tests on the drag strip have shown that this kit alone reduces quarter-mile times by as much as 0.7 of a second, down to 13.88 seconds at a speed of 100.33 miles per hour. It also adds as much as 20 horsepower to the already potent 5-liter HO engine. The concept behind the underdrive pulleys has been around on race cars for 25 years, so the idea is nothing new. The lighter and smaller pulleys reduce the power your alternator, crankshaft, and water pump draw from the engine when they operate. Unlike some pulley kits, this one is designed to work with the stock fan belt, saving the costs of buying a custom one. Next, stock mufflers are replaced with a design which reduces back pressure of exhaust, and sound a bit nicer too. And finally, a taller gear ratio is installed here in the rear end. The stock 2.73 gear drops the engine to such a low RPM in 5th gear that unless you're going over 55 miles an hour, you're almost lugging the engine. Adding this 3.55 gear ratio stretches the power range of your engine over a larger RPM band in overdrive without upsetting drivability, fuel economy, or performance in any way. Ford's Special Vehicle Operations Complete Housing Assembly, which can be ordered with 3.55 gears, a traction lock, and the complete housing, is designed to bolt in easily. It is also less expensive than buying just the ring and pinion gear and posi unit by themselves. The next package deals with a camshaft and header change. With engines built 20 years ago, you can be a lot more creative with the type of camshaft selection, and you can stretch the power band over a variety of RPM ranges. But with today's engine computers, you really have to be careful with the cam, making sure it's not too radical. Despite these apparent roadblocks to higher performance, 12 various cam grinds were tested on an engine dynamometer, and finally a cam was developed that works best with the EEC4. This cam retains the basic hydraulic roller configuration, as opposed to a flat tappet design, and it specs out to 270 to 280 degrees of duration and 0.497-inch lift. This adds power without confusing the EEC computer and without having to continually adjust the valve. In fact, this cam was used on a 1985 test vehicle for 3 years without ever adjusting a valve. Also included in the camshaft package are new rocker arms, special studs, and special dual springs that are custom made for the intake and exhaust valves. Furthermore, the whole cam system is easily installed without having to modify the stock cylinder head.
The hydraulic roller lifter camshaft allows us to use a lifter that has a roller on the end, a fixed roller. This way we can increase the ramp rate on the camshaft while maintaining the decent efficiency and fuel economy. The old style flat tappet lifter, which is also made in a hydraulic, was not as efficient. In 1985, Ford Motor Company, realizing this, switched to the hydraulic roller camshaft. And our performance camshaft allows us to increase the performance and still maintain the fuel efficiency. By adding a camshaft, we increase the compression on our engine and also the fuel delivery system. This requires us to improve the other end of the pump. We have basically more air coming into the engine and more compression, so we need something to get it out. To do this, we use a better tubular exhaust system. The stock system that Ford uses is outstanding for a stock engine, but as we increase these different componentry on it, we must use a better system, and that's where the tubular exhaust system comes into play.
Unlike other types of bolt-on headers, these tubular exhaust units work with the catalytic converters and the stock oxygen sensors, and dyno testing has proven that these headers improve low and mid-range torque. The biggest thing about adding headers, though, is don't do it unless you've added other modifications to the engine. Some people add it first, and it won't necessarily add performance. By adding the second stage with the first one, drag strip times were lowered to 13.53 seconds at 100.22 miles per hour. For those who want serious horsepower gains, you'll want to consider the third stage, which is really going all the way. Installing it involves a complete cylinder head change, a new intake system, and headers. Of course, if you've already gone with stage 2, then you won't need the headers. It's been said that nothing improves performance quite like a set of free-flowing cylinder heads, and it's true. In this case, the stock 302 Ford heads from the 85, 86, 87, and 88 models are remachined, ported, and flow-tested for maximum combustion chamber efficiency. To achieve this, the chamber is polished to create a lean burn swirling effect of the fuel, controlling its direction to assure that it burns as completely as possible. Remember, the goal is to burn as much fuel as efficiently as possible without detonation. That's the key to more power. To improve air intake flow, the airbox is modified on the late model 302, which is no easy task because of its angular design. The idea is to port it open up the passages for better flow. After grinding the box, it is simply welded back together. A manifold and a new throttle body are also added to supply the increased air and fuel requirements of the freer flowing cylinder heads.
Working with the SVO engineers, we have designed 3 packages working in a manner that will improve your performance and the efficiency of the vehicle. This is done in a system where you can do one package at a time, or you can do all 3 in conjunction with our kits. What we've always tried to do is to take the late model Ford and give the enthusiast a few options in the performance category. Our attempts are to deal within the performance parameters as well as the emissions parameters and give our vehicles the extra performance and efficiency without rendering inoperative or removing any of the emissions control devices. We've done this for the most part living with the onboard computer control modules and the electronic fuel injection systems.
At this time, adding more power to the car is limited by the EEC-4's computer program. It will only deliver a certain amount of fuel at this point. But the performance industry is actively exploring the development of replaceable performance chips. Now, street-legal, simple, cost-effective performance is here. All you have to do is decide how much you want to add. Stage 1 adds up to 20 horsepower, Stage 2 up to 40, and Stage 3 up to 50, or a total of about 110 horsepower for all three. Whatever you decide, remember that even though today's performance engines are very complex, modern hot rodding is alive and well. Automobile racing is currently the second most popular spectator sport in America. But years ago, drivers started racing stock production cars by simply removing hubcaps and mufflers and by adding roll bars and racing numbers. The sport began at places like Daytona Beach, where racing was actually on the beach and seawater was used to cool the brakes. From the earliest beginnings of stock car racing, NASCAR has evolved into a sport housed at numerous short tracks and at the super speedways of today, like Daytona and Atlanta. Let's take a look inside a NASCAR day. To support a high-performance car with the capability of speeds over 200 miles per hour, there is a team, from the driver to the mechanics to the tire men and, of course, the owners. These teams start their day at an event by lining up and unloading into the pits. The teams then spread out and go to work. The mechanics roll their toolboxes and equipment into the garage areas, and the tire men go about setting their tires for qualifying and race day. Each team arrives prepared for a full weekend of racing. Most teams have a primary car for qualifying and the race, and a backup car in case of a crash or a problem with their number one car. Everyone is prepared for each racetrack. The suspensions are tuned and qualifying engines are used to go as fast as possible. With only a certain amount of starting positions available, only the fastest teams will qualify to make the field. The fastest qualifying times earn the right to sit on the pole position to start Sunday's race. Here's what qualifying is all about. Some of the best people on the Winston Cup circuit today told us what it takes. Bill Elliott is one of the winningest, most popular, and the fastest driver in the history of NASCAR. Kyle and Richard Petty represent two generations of achievement. Richard has more Winston Cup wins than anyone else, and Kyle is a hot new up-and-coming driver in Winston Cup competition. 1987's Rookie of the Year, Davey Allison, son of Bobby Allison, is one of the brightest stars in racing's Brat Pack. And Leonard Wood is one of the legendary Wood brothers, one of the most successful racing teams since the birth of NASCAR.
What makes you win? You're subject to get beat any time now, as good as all the crews are, but it's all practice and become habit forming to where the moves you make becomes as a habit rather than have to think what you got to do.
Well, first off, it takes a lot of work. You know, it takes a lot of effort from 15 or 20 guys back at the shop to do their job. Plus it takes a good effort from all the people that you bring with you. You're pitting the car on Sunday to actually preparing the car and doing everything else. And to me, it's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job, and there's no shortcuts about it. Still, we've had this year when we've had our ups and downs, and that's true in any sport or any business you go through. And the thing about it is we got to treat this like a business. We got to be able to get through the good times and the bad times both, and put it behind us and go do the job we try to do, and that's win races.
Well, I've got to go out there every time and concentrate 100% on what I'm doing with that race car on the racetrack and relate to what it's doing. That way I can communicate back with the team and we can talk about what adjustments to make. And in order to make this a winning combination, everybody has to work together.
I never really raced a lot. I was not put in a position at a young age to really be competitive with other people. I was competitive in sports and stuff, but not one-on-one like racing is. And it's taken me a while. That's one thing that I learned when I first started racing, to be more and more competitive in a one-on-one situation. I'd been more of a team player and more of a team basketball player, football player. And even though racing is still a team sport, then there are times when you're out there by yourself riding around and you got to make a move or bump somebody or do something. I think the toughest thing that I've had to learn is patience. I don't have any patience at all. I mean, that's just the way it goes. But I still don't have the patience that I need to really run consistently up front. Not the patience of a Richard Petty or a Kel Yarborough or somebody like that. I think eventually it'll come though.
I think it goes back to we've had a good organization. As long as we can keep everybody working in a good positive attitude and try to win races, I feel like that's 100% of the game.
Well, you always let each member, see that his equipment is working properly, whether it's the gas man, or the tire man or whatever, that his wrench is working order and his fuel cans is in top shape and all that. And the jack man, let him keep up with his jack, to make sure everything's working right.
I think the biggest area that we need to fine tune is the consistency area. We haven't been very consistent this year. We've had some good finishes and some bad finishes. Next year we need to have all good finishes. I know we're going to have problems maybe in a couple of races, but we still need to have all good finishes and not as many bad finishes. And we need to be a little bit more aggressive next year.
Well, you got to look back. All I've ever known is auto racing. I never really participated in any kind of other sport. I never played baseball, basketball, football, or whatever in high school. And my middle brother, Dan, drove a little bit, and then I started driving. And it ended up, I was the one that got the job, and it was to the point that I could work on the race car quite a bit and still be able to do some other jobs to kind of make a living. And that's basically how I got started. But still, I feel like I run good on short tracks. I've always been noted for not running good on them, especially in my Winston Cup career. But that's what I got started on. I ran very well on them when I started racing. I won a lot of races.
When I first started racing, I ran one race. I ran an ARCA race at Daytona. That was the first race I ever ran. And then I jumped right into Winston Cup cars. So I've always driven only Winston Cup cars. I run an occasional dirt track every now and then with Camaros or Thunderbirds and that type of stuff on a weekly show. And I run every now and then some short track races. But, basically this is where I've always been in Winston Cup racing. As far as what I enjoy most, I enjoy the dirt track racing a whole lot more because, you go and do those things and there's no pressure, and most of the time I end up spinning out about 8 or 10 times and having a big time and looking like Joey Chetwood, so it's exciting.
I started out in the limited sportsman division at home back in Birmingham, Alabama, and also I ran in the Grand American Series, All Pro and ASA, the Daytona Dash Series, ARCA, and the Busch Late Model Sportsman Series. I've been racing for 9 years and had quite a bit of experience behind me, but it's given me a lot of experience over the years and a big advantage because I had Bobby Allison's knowledge to learn from, his shop to work in, and I got to lean on him for advice as I was coming up through the ranks, racing on the late model sportsman circuit and the ARCA series. Well, I told him a long time ago that I wanted to be a race car driver and that I was aiming for the Winston Cup series, but he told me just to get busy and get started working on the cars.
Well, when he first started going to school and stuff, I think he thought everybody's daddy had a race car in the backyard, and he really didn't pay that much attention. He'd come through and play and be gone. And then when he got to be, a little bit older, maybe 14 or 15 years old, got to hanging around a little more, going to the races with us. even though he went to the races anyway, he never really worked around the car. And he got to working around the car, and sweeping the floor and washing the cars. And then over a period of time, he just got into it a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. And, you know, here he is. I didn't really think that much about it. He was going to high school and playing football and everything around, and tried to get him to go to college. And, you know, one day he come in, he'd been talking to Dale Inman, my crew chief, and a couple of boys at the shop, and talking them into letting him you know, run a car. And he didn't come to me till he sort of convinced them that they'd work on the car for him and run. So when he was 18 years old, he come in and said, okay, you know, I want to start driving the car. So they got a car ready for him for the ARCA race at Daytona, and he went down there and won the race. So, you know, again, I want him to go to college, but he said, look, Daddy, I'll go to college, spend your money, go 4 years. As quick as I get out of the college, I want to start driving a race car. Just give me 4 years in the race car. So, so far it's paid off.
Racing against my father's been different. It's like when we used to play basketball out back behind the house and stuff, I'd always try to beat him and bump into him and block his shots and do everything I could, and he was always beating me there. But this year, and with our Winston Cup car, we've been able to come back and you know, Davey and myself and 2 or 3 of the younger guys that are racing against their fathers and stuff have been able to come back and bump on him a little bit where it counts, where you're making a little bit of money. So, you know, it's been fun. It's been different. You know, sometimes when there's wrecks and stuff, I look to make sure he's not in it, and he looks to make sure I'm not in a wreck. But, you know, it's exciting racing against him.
Well, it's always been a family effort, and we've always got along good.
You know, you can always see there's talent in anybody you get at doing something, and no matter if they're really kin to you or they're just people that you get in off the street, you still treat them as family. And the thing of it is, you live with these guys more than you live with your family because you're going away from home so much. And to me, it's no different than anything else.
Well, really, racing's been our life since I was 10 years old. My father did the racing, and you know, I started like Kyle working around the shop, and then when I got old enough, I started driving, and it's just been our life. Instead of being farmers, we happen to be race car drivers or racing people, and you know, like I say, Kyle grew up in it, didn't really know any better. He wanted to do it, and so I don't know what his sons is going to come up with, but we've had 3 generations of Petties so far.
As I've always said, racing's really been good to us, and if I had to choose your friends, I don't know that you could choose them any better. Your racing friends are very competitive on the racetrack. When it's all said and done and it's over with, you probably got as good of friends in racing as you have anywhere.
He's just turned 50 last year, and he's still going strong. So, you know, my advice right now is to keep going, because every year he goes a little bit longer. That means I know I can go that long too.
I like it. I mean, the faster you go, it seems like that's what it's all about.
These are some of the people that make the sport happen. Their dedication and hard work has proven year after year that effort, equipment, and teamwork is what it takes to dominate a season of grueling 500-mile races. NASCAR racing has obviously come a long way, but the future of stock car racing belongs to the aerodynamic and engine designers of the major U.S. auto manufacturers who are developing tomorrow's technology today. They are also taking what they've learned from racing and putting it into the production cars that the fans will buy, which is helping to propel new automotive development into the next century. Aerodynamics is a trendy description to use when speaking of a vehicle on the leading edge of today's automotive technology. The term has that high-tech ring about it, but to an engineer working in automotive design, it means a number of things: miles per gallon, free horsepower, and stability at freeway speeds. 30 years ago, aerodynamics was not exactly a top priority among manufacturers. Gasoline was inexpensive and there were no EPA figures to be met. So it was more important to design a vehicle that was aesthetically pleasing even if it moved through the air like a brick building on wheels. But then in the early 50s and 60s, stock car racing began to rekindle America's interest in cars in a big way. It was believed that what won on Sunday sold cars on Monday. And Detroit began to design car bodies that would perform well on the high banks of tracks such as Daytona, Charlotte, and Atlanta. The front ends got lower to the ground, the grills became smaller, and the rear windows became more graceful. The harsh edges became softer and the speeds greater without significantly increasing the engine horsepower ratings. It was a step in the right direction, but still a far cry from what we know about aerodynamics today. With the exception of limited production deviations, car design continued to be style-driven, not aero or race-driven. Led by Ford, the industry began taking aerodynamics very seriously during the fuel crisis of the 70s, when corporate average fuel economy, or CAFE, came into effect. Designers found that a 10% decrease in drag provided a 3% increase in economy. That's like taking 600 pounds out of the car, which would be a most difficult and expensive task if achieved through exotic material substitution or other more conventional means. In this case, it was the same as getting a 3% economy gain for free. Now the pressure was on the automotive designers to move body designs into the space age rapidly. It was a question of how fast each manufacturer would be able to react to the needs of the market. By the mid-70s, the cars were being designed with aerodynamics as a prime concern. Form followed function, and coefficient of drag became all important. Since aerodynamics was something the designers weren't used to dealing with, they had to go through a standard process of drawing a vehicle and then moving on to clay models. But this was time-consuming, and they often had to repeat several stages to get things right if the initial wind tunnel results were less than desired. Unlike the computers of the 70s, today's more advanced systems saved the designers time by performing the functions that in the past would have required 2 or 3 drawings and models. But wind tunnels are still one of the best ways for a manufacturer to test how a design will react at various speeds and measure the coefficient of drag. The 9,000 horsepower electric motor in the Lockheed wind tunnel supplies wind speeds of over 200 miles per hour, allowing engineers to try many different configurations under controlled conditions in a relatively short amount of time. As the aerodynamics got better by forcing the air to move around the vehicle instead of into it, cooling the engine compartment and its components represented the next challenge. The designers had to make sure that enough air flowed through the radiator and into the under-hood area to keep everything alive. For instance, they realized in recent years that the electronics used to control engine functions were heat sensitive and needed plenty of cool air circulating around them to keep functioning properly. So funneling air under the hood was as important as maintaining a low coefficient of drag. Auto racing has always been billed as a way to improve the breed. By the late 70s, designers realized that aerodynamics was as important in winning races as the mechanical advances of past years. The manufacturers recognized this and realized that what they were designing for corporate average fuel economy would also work well at Daytona in most instances. The current Thunderbird is a radical new design with a low coefficient of drag and just happens to work well on the high-speed racetracks, providing better top speeds, more stability, and better mileage for fewer stops during the event. Years ago, a 427 cubic inch engine qualified at an average speed of 194 miles per hour. In 1987, Bill Elliott qualified his aerodynamic Thunderbird at 210 miles per hour, with only a 358 cubic inch engine and considerably less horsepower. His increase in speed was due primarily to a highly efficient body design. Although most of the racing Thunderbirds have been in the wind tunnel, including Bob Glidden's Champion Pro Stock dragster, the majority of the testing is done on production vehicles. What's good for cars off the showroom floor these days, with their new aerodynamic designs, is good for competition too. The race cars, of course, go a few steps further. The vehicle is lowered, headlamp openings are covered, mirrors removed, and a small adjustable rear spoiler is added to control the downforce at high speeds. The end result is a very potent aerodynamic package. What lies ahead for automobile designs? The trend toward aerodynamic looks will no doubt continue, primarily because it produces a more efficient vehicle. Using wind tunnels, aerodynamicists and designers cleaned up designs over the years to help us develop what we'll be driving in the future: quieter, more stable cars. The future promises continuing refinements to add free horsepower and gas mileage in a highly competitive market. And what's being learned on the track is finding its way into the design process. And there's no doubt that these increasingly efficient cars will make superior race cars. Today, racing is faster than ever before. Speeds well over 200 miles per hour are possible. However, as speeds have increased, so has the element of danger. In the early days of motorsport, little thought was given to the safety of the driver. Many didn't wear helmets, let alone seatbelts. Fire suits hadn't even been invented yet. About the only safety feature on early race cars was a simple U-shaped roll bar bolted into the floorboard in case the car rolled over. But as speeds began to increase, so did the severity of accidents. In the early 60s, race sanctioning bodies recognized the need for safety and began forming regulations to force race car manufacturers to design their cars to withstand tremendous impacts at high speeds and to cope with every race car driver's greatest fear: fire. Racing safety begins here at the first stage of chassis construction. The chassis of this Trans Am racer will be made of a high-quality chrome moly steel tubing. Though this maze of tubes appears as if it's just welded together at random, that isn't so. Actually, a great deal of research is done to determine the areas subject to the highest stress in an accident, and the chassis is designed to reinforce those areas. You'll note also that the drivers are now enclosed in a steel cage strong enough to protect them during impact at high speeds. In more sophisticated race cars, like those in Formula One or prototype racing, the centerpiece of the car is called the tub, or monocoque. Space-age materials such as carbon fiber, aluminum honeycomb, and Kevlar are used in the construction. Aluminum honeycomb is a 3-layer strip of metal with 2 thin layers of sheet aluminum on the outside, glued to a strip of honeycomb material on the inside. This results in a strong, light material that can also be formed easily and wrapped around areas of high stress, such as suspension or steering components, to protect them from damage during an impact. Both carbon fiber and Kevlar material are used near the driver. Some of you already know that Kevlar is used to make bulletproof vests. Race car manufacturers have used the most innovative methods to reduce the possibility of fire. One such method is the use of these special fuel cells that are required on every race car today. These cells were developed by the Goodyear Tire Company and are basically made of a durable rubber material. In the event of an accident, the cell is designed to stay intact without rupturing, keeping fuel inside so it doesn't burn. These one-touch switches instantly cut the engine and fuel pumps if they should still be running after an accident, which eliminates the threat of sparks or fuel leakage. Finally, every race car is equipped with a complete fire extinguishing system, with nozzles located above the fuel cell, in the engine compartment, and near the driver. By hitting the fire system safety button, the driver or a race safety corner worker can activate the system instantly. And fire extinguishers, which are carried in every car, come in different shapes and sizes, depending on the requirements set by the individual racing sanctioning bodies. For even more fire safety, all drivers are required to wear at least 2 layers of fire-resistant material called Nomex. The first layer is a thin suit, like long johns, while the outer suit is much heavier. Shoes, socks, gloves, and even a hood are all worn, constructed of Nomex materials. Every driver is required to sew his blood type on the outside of the suit to help emergency doctors work quickly. These suits will offer a driver much-needed protection should a fire occur. In today's racing, a driver is required to be strapped securely in strong fiberglass or carbon fiber seats with a 5-point seatbelt system. The belts must be connected to the roll cage or floor and have a quick release lever. Flip up a lever and the driver is free. Many drivers opt for shoulder and neck pads for added comfort and protection. Within the last few years, these window nets became a requirement. These not only keep the driver's hands inside the car, but prevent parts from flying inside. Some windshields are still glass, but some are constructed of special plastic called Lexan, designed to pop out on impact without shattering. Finally, most race cars are equipped with these quick-release steering wheels. These steering wheels are released in a single step, helping a trapped driver to make a quick exit if needed. The people involved in racing are just as concerned with safety as they are with speed. As tomorrow's race cars continue to go faster, the demand for safety will increase too. When a race car driver straps himself into a car, he can now rest assured that he's protected by the best safety technology available to provide him with a built-in margin of safety. This is the grand prize from the Beyond the Finish Line sweepstakes. A specially designed Mustang has been built by Saleen Autosport. It could be all yours just by filling out the entry blank in your video cassette. You are also eligible to win 85 other prizes in the Beyond the Finish Line sweepstakes. 5 first prize winners each receive one set of 4 General XP 2000 tires. 10 second prize winners each receive a 1-year supply of Motorcraft motor oil, 30 quarts. 20 third prize winners each receive racing jackets. And 50 fourth prize winners each receive racing t-shirts. Mail your entry blank to Beyond the Finish Line, Post Office Box 8184, Beaverton, Oregon, 97076. There's no purchase necessary, and your entry must be received by December 1st, 1988. In Beyond the Finish Line number 1, you saw the beginning steps in the building of a Saleen Mustang. Starting with a stock 5-liter LX Mustang with a 5-speed transmission, Saleen Autosport replaces the entire rear axle assembly with a larger one, which includes a bigger gear ratio and a 5-lug bolt pattern. The front and rear springs are lowered and all shocks are replaced. Larger ventilated disc brakes with larger brake calipers are installed. A tower bar is bolted into the top and bottom of the engine compartment, and General XP 2000 high-performance tires and American racing equipment wheels are added. Those were a few scenes from Show 1 on how a Saleen Mustang has been built as the grand prize in the Beyond the Finish Line sweepstakes. Now watch as the rest of the finishing touches are applied to the specially designed Mustang that you may win. The Saleen conversion process is closely related to the suspension. These aerodynamic body panels not only enhance the overall body style, but also improve handling and speed. The front air dam and rear wing add downforce, while the rear valance improves flow from under the car to increase top-end speed by as much as 7 miles per hour. All body panels are exclusive Saleen designs and are made of polyurethane, making them much more durable and flexible than standard fiberglass and plastic. To accent the new streamlined look, Saleen adds tastefully styled graphic stripes, available in either silver, gold, or blue colors. Moving into the final stages, the interior is completely stripped and replaced with all new interior trim and components, new rear seat upholstery, and door panels. For added lateral and lumbar support, Saleen adds specially designed flow-fit seats for aggressive driving. The 3-spoke leather steering wheel and Hurst short throw shifter give the driver more precise control over steering and shifting. In the dashboard area, the stock speedometer and tach are replaced and recalibrated to Saleen performance units. And to make your driving experience a pleasant one, an 80-watt Pioneer tape deck along with 6 speakers are carefully installed. Once the car is completed, Saleen sets the alignment to their own specifications, dialing in -3/4 degree camber and 0 to 1/16 inch of total toe-in. After that, it's loaded onto the transporter and delivered to your Ford dealer. Steve Saleen believes in his product enough to race his Mustangs full-time in the SCCA Showroom Stock Series. As they've proven on the street, the Saleen Mustangs have been consistent winners. Racing his product gives him valuable feedback to continue developing his Mustangs to make them better for the street. Along with the Mustang, Steve races Saleen Rangers, in which he translates car concepts to trucks, for future models that will soon be available through your local dealer as companions to the Mustang, giving the sports-minded truck enthusiast an option on high performance. This Saleen Mustang is not going to the dealer. It will be on display at the 1988 Winston Championship Auto Shows and given away in a special sweepstakes contest at the end of the season. You can be the lucky winner by filling out the entry form that came with this video cassette. Entry forms are also available at any Winston Championship Auto Show or Motorcraft Auto Parts dealers and video outlets across the country. Look for the coupon and the opportunity to win this brand new Saleen Mustang. Thank you for joining us for Beyond the Finish Line number 2. We hope you've enjoyed this inside view of the exciting world of auto racing and vehicle performance. Watch for the next program in this series as we continue our in-depth look beyond the finish line.